Oh, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Lures for Life. I'm Charlie, and today we will be talking about jigs. If I can get it. Jigs. Now, I'd love to eventually go and, be able to do a 20 or 30 minute video on just baits and rods and reels and all that, because that's truly where my passion lies. But for now, we'll touch on the baits, touch on what rod and reel I use, or what you could use, when to throw, and then we'll dive into some of the more of the reflections, and we'll just go from there, right? So, starting off, there is a number of different jigs. There is a football jig, arky style jig, swim jig. There's a couple more, right? But for today, we'll be talking about a football jig. Football jig is actually, this isn't even a football jig. Let's see if I got one. Here's one. It's a small one, but you can see it's really just a ball head jig. But the only difference is the head will look like a football going this way. All right. Now, a jig is used many different ways. It's one of the what I would call core bass fishing techniques or bass fishing lures. All right. When the bite gets tough, post frontal conditions, a storm has come in, fish get tight-lipped. A lot of the time, the jig's where it's at. I don't fish it as often as I used to, but some big bites have come off a jig. You throw it out, let it hit bottom if you're fishing open water, not on the bank or whatever. Throw it out, let it hit bottom, and then you just pick the rod tip up. What it's doing is just dragging across the bottom, right? Slow, making, letting the jig do the work for you. While it's down there, all the skirt material under the water is just dancing. So I can't really make it do it, but all this stuff will be floating, and it'll be moving down there like that, and that's what'll trigger a bite most of the time. Here's one. Skirts fell off of it, but almost all the time, what you want to do is fish a jig. You want to get a trailer put on it. And what a trailer is any real soft plastic, right? This is a Strike King Rage Menace, I think. But its purpose is, for one, to give the jig more action. So when it's falling, these little tentacles, whatever you want to call them, claws, they're kicking like this on the way down. And that also helps the fall rate. So I'd say 8 times out of 10, when you get bit on a jig, especially around laydowns or trees or up on the bank, it's when that it first hits the water and it's coming down, right, and it's falling. That's when the bass will hit it. But different trailers do different things. So like I said, I really wish I could have the time to really go into depth about different trailers, colors, and things like that. But talking points, short videos. Your main thing, like I said, with a jig, when the bite gets tough, right, and you need to slow down, throw the jig out there, and you just let it do the work. You're slowly dragging it on bottom, right? We're slowly dragging it out of cover. And like I said before, there's always, you know, there's swim jigs, you swim faster, a whole bunch of different stuff. But for today's video, slow fishing a jig is what we're talking about, right? I would throw that on, and here's even a bigger one. This is a punching style. Big, huge, 1.25 ounce head. I don't usually keep trailers on them, but 1.25 ounce head for really punching through thick vegetation, getting it down to the bottom, right? Punching. What I would throw them on, as far as a rod, line, and reel, you can do medium heavy for your lighter jigs. You know, 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, medium heavy will work. However, I usually like to throw them on a heavier rod, so a heavy rod. And if you don't know yet, you know what the powers are to a rod. Usually it's like a light, medium heavy, extra heavy, and there's some differences in there too. But that's how their power, being extra heavy, being stiffer. We'll get into all that in another video. But so yeah, I would throw them on. For me, if I was jig fishing today, which I tried, they won't cooperate. I throw mine on a heavy Dobbins Fury rod, so a heavy action rod with a fast tip. I'm throwing, if I'm in open water, not around like laydowns and brush piles and things like that, I'm gonna throw it on 15 to 17 pound test. If I am around like trees, like laydowns or a lot of rock, I'm throwing it on 20 pound. Always fluorocarbon. I usually don't throw any jigs on braided line if I'm not punching or something like that. And punching being, you know, you got a lot of grass and you flip it into the grass and it goes down. I'll throw it on braid just because it likes to cut through the grass a little bit better. But like it's another video. As far as a reel, I usually like a little higher gear ratio, something like a 7:1 to 1, something like that. That way, when I stick them, I can have enough, have a faster reel to go ahead and get them out of cover, right? As far as colors and things like that, there's a billion different colors. I tend to, you know, if it's muddy water, I go with a more natural color, you know, browns, blacks, purple, stuff like that. If it's clear water, I use a lighter colors, you know, chartreuse, kind of the pearlescent whites and things like that. All that you can just really go out and see what works for you, right? I can tell you they're hitting, you know, black with red polka dots, right? And if you're like me, if you hear that, you're gonna go out there and try black with red polka dots, but you know, you're gonna find something that you like for yourself, right? So, getting into the life part of things, right? So we've covered when to throw a jig, what its uses are. You fish it slow, you colors and all that. When the bite is tough, you slow down, right? So fishing side, you don't rip a jig back fast like a crankbait. You drag it, you hop it. Sometimes you just let it sit, right? That's when your pressured fish will usually commit. You're just dragging it real slow and not really doing much with it. You're letting the bait do the work, right? And then all of a sudden, tick, and you got it. So think about that and let it translate into your life, right? When things are heavy, stress, depression, heartbreak, our first instinct is often to rush for solutions. But slowing down allows us to really feel the moment, to think clearly and give space for healing or space for whatever you need, right? So just like picking that jig up and slowly fishing it when the time comes, you need to just slow down. Sometimes the smartest move is to do less and let the moment kind of just be, right? You don't have to rush stuff. Secondly, you throw a jig into thick cover. I know I said that earlier, but you throw a jig into thick cover. Big bass hold in like brush piles, laydowns, rocks. If you're a fisherman like I am, I'm sure if you've fished around brush piles, tree stumps, the messy areas of the lake or the pond, right? Places where you can get snagged real easy. That's where the big ones are most of the time. I'm not saying that they're always there or that's the only place they live, but the probability goes up, right? So if you can take that and really try to apply it to your life as the hardest parts of life, the brush piles, the laydowns, the rocks, the hardest part of life, the grief, the pain, the loneliness. That stuff feels messy too, right? It's messy to throw in. It's messy to throw yourself in. But avoiding them, you really do miss growth. You really do miss the 10-pounders, Going into the tough places is often where you find strength, where you find a breakthrough, where you find courage. It's necessary, right? If I was out here on the lake and I would just want to fish the shallows, right? Open water shallows, yeah, I'm sure I could catch a fish here and there. But I know in my heart and in my head, right, that I know that there's bigger opportunities in the messier places. So really think about it. Obviously it takes courage. It takes a little bit of courage. It takes a little bit of willpower to drag yourself through things. And sometimes you just get thrown into it and you really don't have any say in it. But just know where there are those messy times, that's where the biggest bass are. So I'm going to jump off. I'm going to fish around a little bit and think on some more things, and I'll come back and talk with y'all some more. Alright guys, I'm back. Still no fish in the boat yet. I wish I could show you one, but maybe before the day ends. Done a little bit more jig fishing. They don't want it today, I don't think. But I did get a lot of time to, really think about more jig tips, or, how they tie into life, and just random thoughts, right? So one thing I wanted to share is when you're fishing a jig, sometimes the bite is it just feels like pressure, right? And with the jig, it's like you might not feel a thud or a tap or him hit it, but sometimes the line just feels heavy, like you're snagged, kind of. When you pick up on it a little bit, and it's a little heavy. It's a little heavier than what you're used to. That's him. That's the fish. To quote one of my favorite anglers, his name is Gerald Swindle. G-Man, they call him. If you like fishing and you've never heard of him, go to his YouTube and really look him up. He's got some awesome videos on what he calls PMA, positive mental attitude on the water. Phenomenal guy. Doesn't know me from Adam, but go check him out, right? But his quote is, if it's heavy, or you feel it thud, or when you do feel it thud, he ain't got hands, he hasn't got a wallet, pockets, a safety deposit box. If he's got it in one place, and that's his mouth. So you go ahead and you let him have it, right? And this is actually will tie into a later on point, but for right now, let him have it. Now, back to, it feels like pressure. You don't feel the thud. Moving into the life aspect of things is the signs you're moving in the right way aren't always obvious, right? Sometimes they just feel like pressure. It feels like responsibility, weight, and struggle. That doesn't mean failure, right? It can feel like it, but it doesn't mean that you're failing. It may mean that you're right where you're supposed to be, right? Really try to sit in those times. Sit in your responsibility. Sit in your struggling place. I'm not saying be best friends with it, right? But see it as what it is, and that is a part of your life that you have to go through to get where you're going, right? Don't run from it. Don't shake it off. Don't shake off pressure, because it might be your purpose, right? Additionally, that brings me to the second thing I was thinking about is, set the hook when you're fishing a jig, right? Set the hook with confidence. You can't hesitate when you think you've got a bite. You swing hard or you miss it. That goes back to what I was saying about G-Man. If you feel the thump, there ain't but one place he can have it, and that's in his mouth, right? So you don't hesitate. Hook sets are free, right? And you ain't never going to be charged for a hook set. Go ahead and swing on him. When opportunity calling or like a relationship presents itself, right, you have to commit. And if you don't commit, and fear and doubt can cost you what was meant for you, right? If you're working on something and you're not sure of it, you wouldn't be working on it if you really didn't have it in your heart. That's how I see things. So sometimes faith is just choosing to set the hook and trust it, right? Sometimes faith is just choosing to set the hook and trust it. And that's kind of a good one. Just write that one down. But hesitation will lose you fish. It will lose you blessings. It will lose you opportunities, right? So know the time when to hesitate and when not to. Set your hook with confidence. Set your jig bite with confidence. The slower you fish, and this one might be real reaching, so you're gonna have to bear with me. But slower you fish with a jig, the more you feel the bottom. This is in fishing. In fishing is very important. A jig teaches you to read the bottom, You throw it out there, and it's constant bottom contact. So when you're dragging it, you're feeling the rocks or the mud or the gravel by slowing down, right? You too fast, you yank it off the bottom, you won't never feel it. But that's how you learn structure. I'm actually sitting off a roadbed right now, and it's an old bridge, right? And this is one of the ways where I first learned how to find it. When I first started fishing, I didn't have a graph. I didn't have anything to show me what was on the bottom. So I would take a big jig and I would throw it out and just drag it across the bottom, and you would feel that jig going, hitting rocks, you know, tink, 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 tink. And before too long, I would, you know, not feel any, and I know that that's the edge of the rock bed or the edge of the road bed, right? And for anybody that don't know, bass like structure. They like rocks on the bottom. They like hard bottom. Another video, right? But that's how you learn structure. So in life, when you slow down in life, you sense what's really going on. You sense what's really going on beneath the surface. That's an even better way to put it. In yourself, in others, rushing around. Right? If I was just whipping this jig back and forth, it would blind me. It would, you know, obviously not in a literal sense, but I wouldn't be feeling anything but water. So by slowing that jig down, I can feel the bottom, right? In life, slow down and really be able to see things clearly. Slowing down builds awareness. It builds wisdom. It builds patience, right? All those things are something I struggled with, or still struggle with. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with things like that. But slow down to feel what's really under you, right? Slow down to feel what's really under you, emotionally, other people. You can't always see everything if you're going fast. Right. All right. I'm gonna fish around for another 2 or 3 hours and at least work on my tan. And I think I'll have 1 or 2 more things to talk about before the day's over with. And what we'll do is shoot a little bit more, and hopefully I'll have some fish to show you. But maybe not. But I'll be back with y'all. Alright guys, I'm back. I've got 2 more things to share with y'all. And I wish they were fish. But they're not. That's why they call it fishing and not catching, right? So, trailers. Like I said on the kind of the fishing tips video. And for all purposes, I think that I really do need to go more in depth with when, how, why to use a jig and the lures that I'm talking about in each video. So we'll definitely be doing that. But trailers, what was I saying? So like I said earlier, little trailers that you put on these jigs. The trailer matters. The trailer matters just as much as the jig does. Okay? A jig without a trailer will still work, but it really is incomplete. It's like having the burger with no fries. Okay? It's a staple. The trailer adds life, right? It makes it more lively under the water. Balance. So when that thing falls, you know, that it falls more balanced. So it falls like this. And the action. So really, life and action, pretty much the same thing, but that's what some of the things that it adds to the jig. Also, it adds, it's more dense. It has a bigger body, so when fish do come up and suck it in, it has more surface area. Technical stuff, another video. But how it ties into life and how I was really thinking about it is what you attach to yourself matters. So what your trailers are that you put on your jig for life, your friends, your habits, and your beliefs. The right trailer will bring out your potential. The wrong ones will drag you down, right? And I really do have, some in-depth thoughts. I could really run with this one, but being new to this whole thing, I don't want to take it all off on a tangent. But like I said, what you attach yourself to matters. Friends, habits, beliefs. Your support system shapes how you move. That's a good one. So just like a trailer on a jig, your support system, so supporting this jig, right, it shapes how you move. So really keep that in mind. And lastly, I think this is number 8, is don't cover water fast and go deeper instead. And I've probably touched on slowing down with the jig 2 or 3 times in this video, but in this instance, I'm talking about kind of quality over quantity, if that makes sense. Like a jig isn't about speed. Of course, it can be. But most of the time when you tie it on, like I said, you want to slow down. You fish fewer spots around the lake because it takes a longer time to fish a jig than it does to fish a buzzbait or a worm or something like that, right? But you're fishing these spots more thoroughly, a lot more thoroughly. You're throwing it out and you're barely creeping it on the bottom, right? It takes more time. But that's how you find quality fish, right? If you ask a lot of people, especially a lot of pros, I've always seen, they got their 5 in the box. They're going around looking for a kicker fish, that bigger fish to give them more weight in a tournament. They're throwing a jig. They're going to pick the jig up and they're going to just go wailing it around. And watch some of these guys, they're catching monsters on these jigs. It's no secret. I mean, if you're watching this and you do fish often, a jig, the pigs like the jigs. That's the saying, right? But to throw it over into the life side of things is chasing everything at once really does spread you thin. Spread yourself thin, right? So going deeper in relationships or faith or self-work, which I've I've had to do here lately, it brings more reward than trying to do it all at once. Can you do it all at once? Yes, of course. And I'm sure that people that have done everything at once, or that do everything at once, are just fine. But there's probably some people like myself that things get lost. The details, the quality work gets lost when you're chasing 4 or 5 different things, right? So you fish fewer spots, but you're more thorough, right? So just let that go over into your life. Is don't spread yourself thin. Work on your relationships, your faith, your self-work, etc. But do it in a way where you have not all undivided attention, but that you're giving it a genuine effort. Depth beats distance every time. So, in life at least, right? That's not a fishing metaphor or whatever, but having some substance in something is far more important than having 5 different things going on and you can't really tell me in detail about any one of them, right? All right, well, that's all I've got for today, and hopefully I didn't butcher this, and hopefully it makes some sense. I'm gonna get better at it. I appreciate you for stopping by, and I look forward to more videos. Y'all might not, but I do. I tend to enjoy it. I tend to like talking about fishing, definitely, feelings and all that. And you know, if this helps one person, then it'll make me happier at least. But until next time, guys, this is Charlie for Lures for Life. Check me out on YouTube. Check me out TikTok as well. Hit the follow button, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever. I'm not really caring to do this for any monetization or anything. So maybe one day, but it's not the point I'm going for at the moment. So I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, but thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, I forgot to even show you the fish. It was a grind today. Bunch of boat traffic. It was very slow. The bite was tough. Fished shallow flats, deep, just really had to grind. But eventually I was able to catch 12 decent size ones, but let me show you. And before I show you that, your day is what you make it, right? I could have left and thought a whole bunch of different things, like been negative or down on myself. After all, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to fish, it's hard in itself sometimes. But anyway, let me show you. Oh, God knows. Oh, yeah, that's right. Got him on that aisle 11 pattern. That's the only fish I've touched today. It was tough.